All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, which we do have a few teachers today doing that, so thank you guys for joining in. This is all about conservation, science, and adventure, and bringing it to classrooms around the world. So welcome into our program. This month has been really exciting. It's our biggest month ever. By the month's end, we will have done 60 sessions from across the world, so it's really, really exciting. And the Turtle Hospital is our longest standing partner and has done more with us than anyone, so you guys are in for a real treat. It's really exciting to have them back. We've got 7 classes joining us from across North America so far, and a bunch more coming in on YouTube soon. So if you guys, I'm going to go one by one through each of you and give you guys a chance to do a bit of a shout out. We've got Miss Lackey's grade 4s in Freehold, New Jersey. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi. We've got Miss Garvey's grade 4s in Ottawa, Ontario. Hi, guys.
Hello.
We've got Miss Alexander's grade 6s in Brampton, Ontario. Hi, guys. Hey. Okay, they're winning for sheer loudness and enthusiasm so far. Miss Stanley's grade 4-5s in Petrolia, Ontario. Hi, guys. Awesome. We've got Miss Kemp's grade 2s in Vestavia Hills in Alabama. And let me just get their mic. There we go. Hi, guys. Oh, there's so many kids today. I love it. All right. Miss Collins grade 4s in Fergus, Ontario. Hi, guys. All right. And last but not least, we've got Miss James's grade 1s in San Antonio in Texas. Welcome in, everybody. Holy, there's so many. All right. Of course, the reason you guys are all here today is for our speaker. So we are joined live by Tammy at the Turtle Hospital in Marathon, Florida, and the Florida Keys. So they have been rescuing, rehabilitating, and re-releasing injured sea turtles for over 35 years. Again, they're our longest standing partner, and we're going to go a little tour of their amazing facility and learn a little bit about awesome sea turtles. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Tammy. Thank you so much for joining us today, and take it away.
Hi, guys. How's everybody today?
Excellent. They're all
Good.
muted, so yeah.
Oh, so they can't talk to me. Got it. So I'm just presenting. Thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome.
So we are visiting first today with one of our loggerhead patients. This is Geronimo. He's a subadult male loggerhead, and he is actually the victim of a boat strike. But check out his shell. He doesn't actually have any damage to the back of his shell, right? That's because that boat actually caught him across the right side of his face. It's going to swim out from under that water here, and I'll get you a better look. But if you take a look at the right side of his face across his nose there, can you see that big gash? That is where the propeller caught this turtle. The boat strikes is one of the problems that we see with turtles here at the hospital. That's one of the reasons that we get turtles here at the hospital. We also have a lot of turtles that eat and ingest plastic and litter from the ocean. Unfortunately, that plastic will become an intestinal impaction. It gets stuck inside of the turtle. All right, in this next, I'm sorry guys, the glare on this pool is challenging for me today. I'm gonna figure out the right angle for you in just a second. This is Brianna. Brianna is a patient that has what we call bubble butt syndrome. Now, we actually have a patient here by the name of Bubble Butt. He was the first patient who was ever diagnosed with this syndrome. It is officially known as positive buoyancy disorder. And we call it that because the turtles get hit by boats and then their internal organs malfunction. They begin to release micro bubbles of air and gas into the turtle's body cavity that then get trapped underneath the shell. Now, the problem with a turtle with an air bubble in its shell is that that turtle then becomes a floating turtle, and that is really problematic for turtles out in the wild. Turtles need to get down to the bottom of their habitats to feed on their seagrass beds. That's also where they sleep and rest, and a floating turtle is much more susceptible to both predator attacks and boat strikes hanging out on the surface of the water. So this is Brianna. She is one of our longtime patients. She does have that bubble butt syndrome. And Brianna is also wearing 2 weights on the back of her shell. Kind of hard to see where she is. Let me see if I can get closer and point them out to you. Right about there and right about there on her shell are where those weights are. And those weights provide her with a little bit more of a negative buoyancy so that this turtle can choose to dive down to the bottom of her habitat when it's time and she's ready to do that. Now, this next patient is Splinter. He is a large green sea turtle. And Splinter has been with us here for a couple of months, and I'm going to show you what his intake x-ray looked like when he first came into the hospital. All right, that is what Splinter looked like when he first arrived. As you can see, he has an approximately 3.5-foot spear that was shot into his neck and made it about 2 feet into the body cavity. Now, this turtle got very, very lucky. That spear did not pierce any internal organs. It did not puncture a lung. And we were able to successfully remove that spear from this turtle. But he actually had the spear inside of him for a month or more before he found himself a lobster trap rope. And he became entangled in that rope around the spear itself and also around his front left flipper, and he was unable to swim or move. But a boater saw this turtle, knew he was in trouble, so she called the Florida Fish and Wildlife Division, the FWC, and they reported with a boat and several very strong people who helped unentangle this turtle and then bring him here to the Turtle Hospital. Now, we do think that this turtle was probably speared intentionally. He has a second injury on his undercarriage that would indicate that there was a second attempt to spear this turtle. And here in the United States, all sea turtles are federally protected endangered species. So it is illegal to even touch a sea turtle, much less swim with them. It's definitely illegal to hunt and eat turtles, although that is something that we used to do here in the United States. That's 1973. But this turtle had the spear inside of him for a month or two before we found him. So there is a strong possibility that this turtle could have been speared in another area of the world where it is legal to hunt and eat turtles. Two of those places are very close to us here in the Florida Keys. The Bahamas and Cuba are two places where it is legal to hunt and eat turtles. And those places are only within about 80 miles of us here. So it is possible that this turtle could have been speared in one of those places and then made his way here to the Florida Keys, where he found that lobster trap rope. Another issue that we have with our turtle patients quite a bit is a virus. It's called fibropapillomavirus. And it is very similar to a herpes virus that we have in humans. I'm gonna try to find you a turtle with a lot of cysts so I can show you what that is. There we go. All right. So can you see the cysts and tumors around the eyes of that turtle and around the back of the neck there? Those tumors and cysts are not supposed to be there. It usually takes multiple surgeries for us to remove all of the tumors from these turtles.
Trouble is currently tumor-free, which is very exciting news. And then we also got
we have a very special laser that we use to remove the cysts and tumors from the turtle, their skin as it goes. So we don't need to worry about excess bleeding or stitches afterwards. But the coolest part about this virus is that after we remove all of the cysts and tumors, we will then hold the turtles here for an additional 12 months. And we do that to give them time for their bodies to develop the antibodies that they will use to fight off this naturally occurring virus in the future. Now, this is little Koa. He's a staff favorite. He's about a year old, maybe a little bit younger than that. And he was the victim of a predator attack. Not necessarily a shark, although we do have a lot of sharks here in the Florida Keys, and they are the main predator of sea turtles. We also have predatory fish like tuna and mahi-mahi that eat turtles, even turtles this size with the shell and all. So no guarantee that he was attacked by a shark, but definitely something with sharp teeth. As you've probably noticed, he is missing his front or most He does have a little bit of a nub of that flipper left, however.
Each turtle's in their own tank.
And my live tour is coming into this enclosure, so I'm going to take you next door to the big saltwater pool.
While you're walking there, Tammy,
Yes,
can you just show us the coast to where you guys are? Because it's really interesting to see that location you guys are in.
of course. So this is what we look like here in the beautiful Florida Keys.
On the water.
Yep. Actually, this morning when I came out to do my first Skype session at 9 o'clock, we had a beautiful dolphins who swam by. We don't see that every day, but it's up. All right, this is Shelby. She is one of our very dedicated rehabbers. Hi, Shelby. And she is throwing out some turtle breakfast. So let's take a look at what's on this little food and beverage cart. Looks kind of like what the airline stewardess does when she comes down the aisle in the plane, right? We've got frozen squid. We've got all kinds of yummy shrimp, mackerel, and rather. We have vitamins and minerals specific for the individual turtles. And then we've got lots and lots of romaine lettuce. Now, green sea turtles primarily eat green things, seagrass and algae. We do give some of the turtles seagrass here, but the majority of their diet is romaine lettuce. That has the same nutritional quality as the seagrass that they would be eating out in the wild. Each of our turtles does have a specific diet that's weighed out for them every single day. And the rehabbers will use both targeted tossing to make sure the turtles get their individual food, and also a pair of tongs. I'll show you how Shelby's demonstrating that in just a moment. We do have a blind turtle here at the hospital. His name is April. He's missing his right eye completely. He has shadow vision only left in his left eye. That's him right down there. And then Shelby is going to use a set of tongs to bring the squid right in front of his face so that Kent doesn't steal it from him. And April gets his fair share. Now, all of our turtles here are fed twice a day, their standard diets in the morning and in the evening. And then every hour on the hour, as we bring a guided tour group through, the turtles also get special treats. We give them turtle chow, and we allow the guests here at the hospital to feed those patients. That allows the guests to interact a little bit more with the turtles, and the turtles get their treats at the same time. That large lady there is Kent, and you can see the weights pretty clearly on the back of her shell there. These are temporarily affixed with Velcro that allows the rehabbers to reposition those weights until they find exactly the proper calculation for buoyancy, and then they will semi-permanently attach those weights. Green turtles are all pretty docile. They don't mind living together. Loggerhead sea turtles can be more territorial. They're definitely more aggressive. We do have one male loggerhead turtle who's here in this saltwater pool. If he decides to pop up, I will certainly point him out. Right down here below me, this is one of our permanent residents. His name is Montel. Montel was actually named for the talk show host Montel Williams. And that's because Montel came to us with kind of a lot of drama. Montel is missing his left front flipper entirely, half of his front right flipper. He's missing one of his eyes. He came to us with FPV, that virus. He was once attacked by a shark and once hit by a boat. So poor Montel, hopefully that drama is now over for him now that he is here safe and sound at the Turtle Hospital. Now we do have 5 permanent residents here at the hospital. White turtle, she's our ghost Kemp's Ridley turtle. We have April and Montel, who you just met. There's Bubble Butt, who I think is coming up here shortly. I'll point him out in just one moment. And then Rebel is our adult male loggerhead. And all 5 of those turtles are adoptable turtles. So if your classroom decides that they would like to adopt a sea turtle, you can do that for $35 a year. You receive an official certificate of adoption, a color photograph and biography of your turtle. And then every 4 months, your turtle will send you a letter telling you exactly what's going on with that individual turtle and all of their friends here at the Turtle Hospital. All right, so I just want to point out this one last permanent resident here. Get the glare off. That is Bubble Butt, the original Bubble Butt. We named the syndrome after him, but that's the patient named Bubble Butt, that little guy there with the spots on the back of his shell. Now, it is very difficult to tell the gender of a sea turtle when they are juvenile, but upon adulthood, the male turtles will grow a great big giant sea turtle tail, and the female turtles have a little itty bitty teeny stubby tail. And the reason for that is that is where the male's sexual reproductive organ is housed, inside of the tail. Now, this big turtle here is our largest turtle here at the hospital, and therefore our oldest. Her name is Hanson Bowie, and she weighs in at a little over 300 pounds. Now, these turtles have very small brains, about the size of a grape. They're not particularly smart animals, but each turtle here at the hospital has its own unique personality, or I don't know, maybe they're turtle-alities. They're not people, right? I'm going to walk you around to the backside of the pool. I've got some little surprises to show you today.
Ooh, that's exciting. It's this part that I always like to watch kids' faces, so I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Okay. All right. Certainly our most popular patients. You guys, these are little itty bitty baby turtle hatchlings. These hatchlings are just a few weeks old, and they came from wild turtle nests here in the Florida Keys. They were either disoriented hatchlings, or they just didn't have enough energy left to make it out to their seagrass beds about 10 miles offshore, which is where they need to grow up. Now, sea turtle hatchlings have an incredibly low rate of survival. Believe it or not, only 1 out of every 1,000 hatchlings will make it to turtle adulthood. Only 1 out of every 600 will make it past their first 2 years of life. So all 7 of these little hatchlings are going to get to go home within the next couple of weeks, but we do have 2 more hatchlings that we will keep here until they are 2 years old. They are part of what we call our Head Start program here at the hospital, and we'll hold them here until they're 2 years old to make sure that they are nice and big and fat and strong before we release them out into the wild. Now, these turtles are loggerhead turtles, and as I mentioned earlier, loggerhead turtles can be very territorial and very aggressive, and we are seeing that even in these tiny babies right now. We are seeing these turtles try to nip and bite at each other, and they're just a few weeks old. Now, baby sea turtle hatchlings actually use the reflection of the moon on the ocean water to know what direction they need to go once they come out of their nest in the sand and are ready to head out to their ocean homes. So oftentimes you might see an area near turtle nesting beaches that either has red street lights, or maybe the house lights have been changed out from white light bulbs to red light bulbs. And that's because turtles cannot see red lights. And sometimes those street lights and house lights, that when they're white lights, can confuse the turtles, and they'll go the wrong direction. And instead of heading out to the ocean where they're supposed to go, they instead head out into the street.
So Tammy,
yes,
I don't know if you have a little bit more to share. By all means, let's check it out. But I was wondering if you wanted to go to Q&A now or do something else before we do that.
oh, question and answer sounds fine.
All right. Well, in that case, that was a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much for diving us in. And yeah, we're going to go to questions. I want to mention that we've got about 27 groups watching on YouTube right now, which is ridiculous. So we've got pretty much everywhere in Ontario. I think all of Ontario is watching. They finished the election. They came to Turtles. And then we've got Massachusetts, we've got New Jersey, we've got even more. So please do identify yourselves on YouTube, guys. Tell me where you're from, and I'll take a few questions in just a minute. But let's start by diving in with Miss Lackey's class. If you guys want to kick us off with a question, come on up.
Listen loud. Stand up. All right. Here, Kendall. Here, right there is fine. Just nice and loud.
How did the turtles adapt to the habitat in the hospital?
How did they adapt to the habitat at the hospital? That's a great question. Sea turtles are actually born biologically programmed with all of the information that they need to make it out in the wild on their own. So once they are hatched from their eggs, their mothers never see them again. They lay their eggs and then leave them there. And sea turtle hatchlings are expected to know exactly what to do when they make it out into the wild. Now, we do a few things here at the hospital for the turtles that we know are going to be released or that we hope will be released to try to keep their behavior as natural as possible. So we give them some structures at the bottom of their tanks to hide underneath, that simulates how they would hide naturally in the wild. We feed them the most natural food possible. So for our potentially releasable turtles, we do not give them turtle chow. And then we just try to make sure that they have access to seagrass and algae, again, to keep their behavior here at the hospital as similar as it would be in the wild. So that makes that transition easier for them when they're ready to go home.
Very cool. And then just in case this was the interpretation of the question, do turtles mind the hospital? Like, do you sense them being stressed or having difficulties or anything else? Or is it pretty good because you guys take good care of them?
Turtles can definitely show signs of annoyance. There are some turtles who, for example, prefer to live by themselves and some other turtles who prefer to live with other turtles. So we really try to pay attention to the cues and signals of the turtle's behavior, and that gives us information about what we think they might like.
Very cool. All right. Thank you so much. Let's dive in with Miss Garvey's class. If you guys have a question, come on up.
How do you find all the turtles at the turtle hospital?
Really good question. So most of the turtles here come from the general public. We are not out on the water looking for turtles to save and rescue. We are here at the hospital helping the turtles that we already have. So we rely on private boaters and lots of commercial fishermen. Even the Coast Guard brings us a lot of turtles.
All right. Great question. Miss Alexander's class, if you guys want to come up, go for it.
You guys have soft-shelled turtles?
I'm sorry, repeat that, please.
You have soft-shelled turtles.
No, we don't have soft-shell turtles. That is a freshwater turtle variety, and we only have sea turtles here at the Florida Keys, mostly because we are surrounded by ocean here.
Yeah. Do people ever bring you things that are like freshwater turtles or tortoises or anything else?
Not very often. On occasion, we will get a box turtle. That's a common land turtle species here in the Florida Keys. There are some other wildlife rehabilitation centers that we can take those turtles to if they need extra care. But the majority of the time, they just need to go back to their habitats and they're fine to live off their life naturally.
Excellent. All right. Miss Emily's class on YouTube wanted to ask, what's the most common injury you see at the hospital?
Common injury. Well, the fibropapilloma virus is probably why we have the most patients here, but that's not necessarily an injury. So I would say that boat strikes are probably the most common injury that we see here at the hospital. So unfortunately, the very worst predator for all of these turtles is humans. It's us. We do the most damage.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the answer. Miss Stanley's class, if you guys have a question, come on up.
We are learning about food chains. Can you explain a food chain that the sea turtle is a part of?
Absolutely. So one of the interesting things about the fibropapilloma virus that we deal with here with turtles is that we see it much more prevalently in the green sea turtles, even though we have a larger population of loggerhead turtles here in the Florida Keys. And we think that part of that reason is because their immune systems have been compromised by water pollution. Now, loggerhead turtles eat primarily hard-shelled invertebrates. They eat things like crab and lobster. And here in the Florida Keys, they are especially fond of our Florida Keys conch. But green sea turtles eat primarily green stuff out in the wild. They're eating seagrass and algae. And it is those aquatic plants that act as the filters for our ocean, removing and absorbing toxic chemicals once they end up in the water. And unfortunately, once that food is infused with those chemicals, it is still going into the bodies of these green sea turtles. So they're eating that filter material and ingesting these chemicals at a much higher concentration than they should be, and it is affecting their immune system.
And does anything eat the turtles?
Yes, absolutely. So we have turtles who are at risk from predator attacks from sharks. Obviously, we have a lot of sharks here in the Florida Keys, but turtles also get eaten by predatory fish. Things like mahi-mahi and tuna will eat small turtles, even with the shell and all.
Interesting. All right. Miss Kemp's class, let's go to Alabama, guys. If you guys have a question, come on up.
Okay. Go ahead, Thomas.
How do y'all always know when like a turtle is hurt?
Well, we rely on the general public to bring us that turtle, but some of the things that we would look for to tell us that a turtle is injured is whether or not it had those cysts and tumors from the fibropapillomavirus. We look for floating turtles. That's very problematic for turtles because turtles need to get down to the bottom of their habitats to sleep and rest. Entanglement is also an issue that we have here in the Florida Keys. Sea turtles do need to breathe air to survive. So if they become entangled in a crab trap rope or a buoy line and that holds them underwater, they can actually drown underwater. Monofilament fishing line is also a big issue for us here in Florida. Once that finds our turtles in the water, it wraps around their flippers, their necks, and their throats. As the line gets tighter, it begins to cut into their skin. And if it's not removed in time, it can actually amputate an entire limb, bone and all.
Yeah. So just like with us, if you guys are in distress, it's pretty easy to tell if turtles are in distress most of the time. All right. Miss Collins' class, come on up, guys.
How do you help the turtles when they are tangled?
That's a very tricky process. So if the turtles are entangled underwater, then somebody probably is going to have to get into the water and cut that rope or entanglement off of the turtle flippers to free it. Monofilament fishing line is more complicated because that's a clear fishing line. We ask people if they find turtles who are entangled in monofilament fishing line to please not try to unentangle that turtle yourself. Bring it here to the turtle hospital because sometimes we can do more damage when we're removing that line, not intentionally, of course, but we would like for that procedure to be left to the professionals here at the turtle hospital.
Yeah, excellent. Mr. Spice class online wants to know, grade 3s in Kitchener, they want to know, where do you keep the turtles' eggs? And this is interesting too. Do you find turtle eggs? Do turtles there lay eggs? Are there any eggs?
Yeah, so no, we don't have any eggs here at the hospital. One of the interesting things about sea turtles is that all sea turtles, without exception, return to their natal beaches to lay their own nest of eggs. So that means they know exactly which single beach in the entire world they were hatched on, and they will go back to that beach and lay their own eggs. Have any turtle nests here at the hospital. We don't allow the turtles to breed here at the hospital because we don't know where their natal beaches are. I can ask that female turtle, but she's probably not going to tell me. And if I can't take her there, then she will refuse to lay her eggs and they would become egg bound inside of her. But here in the whole state of Florida, but especially here in the Florida Keys, we have a lot of wild turtles who do lay nests. And so not as a part of my employment here at the Turtle Hospital, but just something that I do for fun. I actually volunteer to walk beaches once a week. I am looking for turtle tracks. That tells me what kind of turtle came up onto the beach. And then from those tracks, I can take a look at some other signs and tell whether or not the turtle has laid a nest. After that nest is laid, we'll mark that nest and mark the date. Because we walk those beaches every single morning, we know exactly when the nest was laid. And then right around the time that the nest is supposed to hatch, we are looking for hatchling tracks that leave the nest and go back out into the water. About 72 hours after we see that nest hatch, we will go in and excavate the nest. We will actually dig with our hands all the way to the bottom of the egg chamber and pull out all of the hatched eggs, the empty shells. We can assume that those turtles made it out into the water safely. We also open up all of the unhatched eggs and determine whether they were unfertilized or just did not incubate for whatever reason. And we will report all of that data back to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, who collects those statistics for the entire state. And that gives us a really good information about population distribution based on what we know about turtle nests.
Best volunteer gig ever. How cool
Yep.
is that? All right, we'll do our last and our first round of questions with Miss James's class. If you guys want to come up and ask one, go for it. So many questions.
What is the oldest turtle you ever seen?
The oldest turtle that we've ever seen, that's probably one that we have here now, to be honest with you. Bubble Butt, we believe, is somewhere between 50 and 60 years old. He's been here at the Turtle Hospital for more than 33 years. We've had him here longer than any other turtle patient. He's probably the most famous turtle in the entire world. Some of us call him a bit of a celebrity.
Miss Potts' class and Miss Bellin's class, both online, wanted to know what is the life expectancy of these turtles and how large do they get? So you mentioned that they grow as they get older. So how big and how old?
Yeah, so most sea turtles can live to be anywhere between 70 to 100 years old. The leatherback sea turtle is one of our largest species of sea turtles. They only get about 60 years old. That turtle can actually reach 2,000 pounds. That is a full ton of sea turtle. That's a lot of turtle. But the greens and the loggerheads, what we have most commonly down here in the Florida Keys, the greens can reach about 500 pounds and the loggerheads max out at about 450 pounds.
Very cool. But for the leatherback, for the classes that are grade 2 and for the classes that are grade 2 and 1 especially, imagine a turtle that weighs as much as your entire class. It's very cool.
That's right. Yeah. Those turtles at full size are about 9 feet long and 4 feet wide.
Very cool. I'll send a picture of a leatherback turtle because I know you don't have any in the hospital, but I'll make sure the kids see them before they're done today.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back through another round of questions, guys. So Miss Lackey's class, you guys want to kick us off again? Come on up.
All right, nice and loud.
How many different species of sea turtles are there?
Good question. So there are 7 different species of sea turtles worldwide. We have 5 species here in Florida. We have green turtles, loggerheads, hawksbills, Kemp's ridleys, and leatherback turtles. Also in existence are olive ridley turtles. They live primarily in South American and Pacific waters, and Australian flatback turtles, which obviously live in Colorado. No, wait, it's Australia.
Awesome. All right, Miss Garvey's class, you guys want to come up? Go for it.
Sarah? How do turtles get tumors?
Can you repeat that, please?
How do turtles get tumors?
How do they get tumors, Tammy?
Yeah, good question. So let me go over and show you some of these tumors. Actually, we're going to leave the hatchlings, forgive me.
Bye, hatchlings.
The fibropapilloma virus is actually a naturally occurring virus. It's something that's always been in the water here. But unfortunately, we are seeing the rate of occurrence specifically with our green sea turtles at a much higher rate than we should be. Somewhere between 50 to 85% of our green sea turtles with FPV have that fibropapilloma. And this is key lime. She has a pretty high viral load of those tumors. As you can see, they're all the way around the back of her neck and underneath her flippers there. The key lime is actually having surgery today. Our veterinarian is on site. She's going to take some of these tumors off of this turtle today. The key lime has had her first surgery already. She actually came in with both of her eyes completely covered in tumors, and she could not see at all. So the first thing that we did with this turtle was to take her up to visit with our veterinary ophthalmologist, Dr. Karpinski in Miami. Dr. Karpinski examined this turtle, determined that the corneas were not involved in those tumors, so she was able to safely remove those tumors and immediately restored eyesight to this turtle. Now, it does usually take us multiple surgeries to get all of the cysts and tumors off of these turtles. We can only have them under anesthesia for about an hour at a time because they are conscious breathers. So unlike you and I, when we fall asleep, our bodies continue to breathe naturally. These turtles have to think about breathing. They have to make sure that their nostrils are up and out of the water when they take a breath, so they're not breathing in water instead of air. So when these turtles are under anesthesia, we do that breathing for them.
How neat is that? All right. Miss Alexander's class, if you guys have another question, come on up.
So I've seen that there's many red marks on each turtle or some of the turtles. What are those for?
Are you talking about the red marks on the hatchlings or the names on the back of the shell?
Hatchlings.
The hatchlings, yep. Good question. So very observant. That is actually a small little dot of fingernail polish. And we have put that on the hatchlings to mark that those turtles are eating successfully on their own. Sometimes when you have a bunch of baby hatchlings in a tank together, they all look the same and it's hard to tell which one is which. So we put those little dots on their backs to let us know that those turtles are ready to be released.
Very cool. Great question. Very observant. Yeah. All right. We want to ask, we've got a bunch of questions on YouTube, so I'm going to cover a few of them and then go back to our live classes. So we've got Miss Levine's class wants to know, how many turtles have you treated so far this year?
So far this year, I think we are in the 60, 70 turtle range. We typically see an average of about 100 turtles a year. We release about 80% of those turtles. So in the 33 years that we have been in existence here at the Turtle Hospital, we've released over 3,000 turtles.
Wow. So that answers the question of Miss Levy Johnson's class. They wanted to ask how many you rescued since establishment.
There you go.
And then Miss Lunston's class wants to know, how do you release the turtles back to the ocean?
So we do it a couple of different ways. We try to put them back as close as possible to where we found them, give them back to their home territory. Sometimes that happens on a boat if the turtle was found in the middle of the ocean. Sometimes it's on a private beach on someone's personal property. And sometimes we actually decide to do those releases publicly, and we'll invite the general public to come down. And you will be able to stand on the beach and watch as we put that turtle back out onto the sand and let it crawl back into the ocean.
Very cool. All right. Let's do our last 4 questions, guys. Miss Stanley's class, come on up.
You said sea turtles are an endangered species. How can we help them?
Excellent.
How can you help them? That's a great question. So I would say as people, the biggest things that we can do are reduce, reuse, and recycle. That's the biggest difference that you can make for these turtles here in Florida, all the way up there in Canada. We want to try to eliminate as much as plastic use as possible. And of course, participate in beach cleanups. If you clean up trash there in Canada, less of that trash is going to float all the way down here to Florida and be ingested and eaten by our sea turtles.
Excellent. So yes, that's and we'll pass along resources on that too, both in Canada and the States. There are really fantastic programs to do beach cleanups where you can collect data and do stuff safely, and it's really, really great. So we'll pass those along, and I'm glad we got that question in. All right, Miss Kemp's class, come on up, guys. Love all the questions from everyone today, by the way. You guys are really thoughtful and enthusiastic. I love it. All right. Miss Kemp's group.
How old they are and how much they weigh.
How do you know how old they are?
And how much they weigh.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so we actually have a scale. I'll take you over and show it to you. This device here is a hydraulic lift. So that helps us get some of our larger turtles out of the water. We can lower that platform down, slide a turtle up onto that tray, and then use that hydraulic lift to pull them back up. And then right over here, that is actually our scale. I should make Garrett get on it and we can see how much he weighs, but there's a device there that tells us exactly how much the turtle weighs. We've got a little pad there to make it more comfortable for them. So we'll just put the turtle directly on that scale, and then the number changes depending on what their weight is.
And for age, it's just a guessing game?
It is pretty much. We don't have a definitive way to age the turtles. They don't have teeth that we can look at like other animals do. They certainly don't have rings on their shell that we can count, but we do know that they're indeterminate growers. So that means that they will continue growing all the way up until the day they die. And so we can make some pretty good estimations about age based on what we know about size.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to go to Miss James's class first and then Miss Collins' class. So Miss James, if you guys have a question, go for it. Oh. Go ahead. Yeah.
How many turtles do you have total?
How many do you have total?
Yep, right now in-house at the Turtle Hospital, we have 48 turtles, not including our hatchlings. And I think I counted 7 of those.
Okay, very cool. That's low for, we've done so many of these that like the number changes every time we talk. That's interesting.
It is.
All right, Miss Collins' class, you guys can wrap us up and ask one last question. Come on,
Hurry. He's coming. 1 second.
Take your time, all good.
All right, go.
How many turtles have died in a year?
How many turtles have died in a year? That's a sad question. About what we do. We try to save every single turtle that comes in here to the hospital, but we lose about 20% of our turtles. Some of them just don't make it. They have infections or they pass away on their own. And sometimes we do have to make the tough decision to euthanize an animal if we feel that we're not going to be able to rehabilitate it and help it get better. So I would say for this year, I think we've lost about 20 turtles.
Okay. So it is a sad question, but it's really, I think it's useful to know for kids when it comes to things like animal hospitals that, you know, sometimes it is just too difficult and that you guys are doing fantastic work for things that otherwise would never have been able to survive.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, before we wrap up, Tammy, so I want to ask, we already had a kid ask about how do they save the turtles, and that's all the way up in Canada. You mentioned boat strikes a lot. So if people happen to be in Florida or just in the water generally, how can they avoid hitting turtles or other marine life?
Gotcha. Well, yeah, here in the Florida Keys, we have mostly shallow water. Our coral reefs are about 5 miles offshore, and everything from shore to the reef is very shallow. So there are special channels that are marked here in the Florida Keys that help boats avoid shallow areas. But we also really need boaters to slow down and look out for marine life, not just turtles, but also manatees and dolphins, which are 2 other types of animals that often get hit by boats here in the Florida Keys.
All right, excellent message, guys. So this has been a fantastic session. What we're going to do, I'm going to pass along resources about leatherback turtles, about the Turtle Hospital generally, see how you guys can adopt. And again, this year, we're really encouraging classes to see if they can contribute to saving some amazing turtles and helping such an amazing facility. For now, I want to thank the YouTube classes too. We had over 27 join in, which was fantastic today. I'm going to demute every class's microphone. And so boys and girls, if you guys could get ready to join me in saying a huge thank you to Tammy and the Turtle Hospital. You guys are all now demuted. Go for it. Oh my God, the best day ever. All right, thank you guys so much for joining in. Again, biggest October we've ever had. Thanks to you guys. Tammy, that was marvelous. Thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a great